Please welcome back to the program, John Fund. Big John, how are you?
Thank you so much, Larry. Keep the faith.
I will.
You are doing it well.
John, where are you?
Colorado Springs. I escaped from the East Coast, and I've had my first restaurant meal, my first haircut, my first taste of normal life in weeks.
Had to travel all the way to Colorado to make that happen.
Yep. Free Wyoming is even better.
John, real quickly, your reaction to the coronavirus pandemic.
You know, Larry, I'll just summarize it very briefly. We got into this because we listened to a couple of modelers who came up with models that said there'd be 500,000 dead in Britain and 2.2 million in the U.S. The models turned out to be complete crap, and I don't use that word lightly. Governor Cuomo today admitted that all of the modelers were wrong. He admitted it. He said we were all wrong, all of us, all of the time. The next time any modeler comes to us and says, oh, climate change, we've got these climate models that show we have to upend our economy. The next time modelers come, let's sit down and actually tear apart the engine of their model and see if it would ever run in the real world.
John, just real quick response. The modelers didn't tell the governor to put COVID positive patients in nursing homes. The modeling didn't tell him to do that, especially when he had that big ship that was basically empty and the Javits Center in Central Park basically empty to transfer these people.
But the fear of the modelers and their predictions drive politicians to do crazy and unpredictable things.
Well, John, speaking of crazy, unpredictable things, we're now talking about a national election using mail-in ballots. What could go wrong?
Well, if you go to the Heritage Foundation, they have a whole database on how voter fraud is done, and the vast majority of the most severe cases are involving mail-in ballots. In fact, the most recent big disaster was in North Carolina, which involved a consultant who stole absentee ballots for a Republican candidate. This can be bipartisan. In 2005, a presidential commission on voting systems headed by Jimmy Carter and former Secretary of State James Baker concluded that voter fraud was the tool of choice. Mail-in ballots were the tool of choice to how to steal elections, because the ballot is not secret. It is not under chain of custody. It's not observed by government officials. Anyone can take it from a mailbox, have it directed to a wrong address, intimidate someone into filling it out a certain way, go door to door, and help people vote improperly. It is an engraved invitation to mischief.
My guest is John Fund, author of the book Stealing Elections, How Voter Fraud Threatens Our Democracy, co-author of the book Who's Counting, How Fraudsters and Bureaucrats Put Your Vote at Risk. John, I want to play for you a response given by the Attorney General of California, Alex Padilla, who was asked, how can you prevent fraud with these mail-in ballots? Here's what he said.
But let's get to the heart of where the RNC chair was going with this critique, right? The concern is that there are going to be ballots sent out to people that are no longer on the rolls. Let me ask the question this way. Explain the security that you have that will prevent that ballot from, that gets sent to a house, the person doesn't exist anymore. What security do you have in place that that ballot doesn't get filled out and counted?
So a couple of things. First of all, ballots are mailed to all registered voters. There's a category of inactive voters that I think is the focus of their attention that don't receive these ballots. But several safety measures are in place that have protected the integrity of our elections for many, many years, starting with a signature match. Every person who votes by mail has to sign the outside of the envelope when they're returning that ballot. One of the first things county officials do is check that signature on the envelope against a signature on file for that voter to before they count those ballots. California is also rapidly expanding a ballot tracking system that we've labeled Where's My Ballot to allow voters to see the ballot through the mail delivery process, both on the way to the voter and then on the way back to the county, and receive alerts via text message, email, or phone calls when the ballot's been received and counted. Again, transparency, accountability, and confidence in the process.
John Fund, I'm going to go out on a limb and say John Fund is not impressed.
Okay, so I can go online and find out where's my ballot. How many people do that? I mean, how many people send in their ballot and track it like they track an Amazon shipment? Give me a break. In addition, what we're not worried about is inactive voters. We're worried about new registrants who sign up, pretend they're U.S. citizen even if they're not, who pretend they're at a certain address when they're not, who have it directed to another address. We had a guy in Long Beach who found 86 ballots in the last election sitting on top of the apartment complex mailbox that all been addressed to the same person. And there was a widow who'd never heard of any of them. But somebody was planning to obviously come and pick up those ballots, fill them out. And by the way, the signature match is a farce. These temporary clerks who are brought in to process the millions of ballots, how much time do you think they're going to look at the signature? Or if they look for it at all? Come on.
John Fund is my guest, author of the book Stealing Elections, co-author of the book Who's Counting? How Fraudsters and Bureaucrats Put Your Vote at Risk. We're taking your calls when we come back. Tarek, Carl, Beverly, Mark, do not leave town. Larry, Elder, John Fund.